The Knicks were wrong. Charles Oakley was wrong. But the bottom line is, this hurts our product.
You know, we need to keep the Garden a place that's comfortable and safe for everybody who goes there.
I've known Charles Oakley for over 25 years.
There are cameras everywhere in Madison Square Garden.
I heard that every time I come in the Garden, they have to let them know I'm in the Garden. For some reason, I don't know why.
Quality, the fans here at the Garden chanting Charles Oakley's name.
You know, when you talk about the heart and soul of that franchise, he was that.
February 2017, Madison Square Garden, New York City. The arena that Charles Oakley bled for 10 years was dragging him out in handcuffs. And the New York Knicks issued a statement saying they hoped he would get some help. You need to understand what Charles Oakley was to this city first. So let's go back to 1988. New York was not a fun city back then. Crime was up. The Knicks were a mess, and they needed someone to come in and physically change the culture inside that locker room. On June 27, 1988, the Chicago Bulls sent Charles Oakley to the New York Knicks in exchange for center Bill Cartwright. Oakley was 24 years old. He didn't come to score or to be famous. He came to protect Patrick Ewing, do the dirty work, and make the Knicks impossible to bully. And for 10 years straight, 10 seasons, the New York Knicks made the playoffs every single time Oakley was on the roster, every single year. That is not a coincidence. That is a guy who showed up every night, every practice, and never asked for anything except to be treated with respect. The closest they ever got a championship, the 1994 finals, Oakley was right there in the middle of it. The city loved him, not because he was flashy, because he was real. In a league that was becoming more and more about individual brand, Charles Oakley was a team. And then in 1998, it was over. The Knicks traded Oakley to the Toronto Raptors for center Marcus Camby. The official reasoning was youth and athleticism. Camby was 24, Oakley was 34. They traded him after 10 years and 10 playoff runs, after watching him sacrifice his body every single night so Patrick Ewing could be the guy. Oakley never burned them publicly for it. That wasn't who he was. He went to Toronto, played out his career, and eventually moved on. But here's where the real story starts, not in 1998, in 2016. In October 2016, the New York Knicks celebrated their 70th anniversary season. At halftime of their home opener, they brought back former players to honor them in front of the crowd. Charles Oakley was not invited. He tried to set up a meeting with Dolan through mediators. He said 15 different people tried to broker it. All of them got the same answer. James Dolan. If you follow the Knicks, you know the name and you know the reputation. An ownership era so widely criticized that the franchise bottomed out in 2019 while sitting on the most valuable arena in professional basketball. So by the time February 2017 arrived, the fuse had been burning for at least 2 years, maybe longer. What happened next wasn't random, it was inevitable. February 8, 2017, the New York Knicks were hosting the Los Angeles Clippers, nationally televised. The Knicks were 22-31, the front office was in open war with Carmelo Anthony, Phil Jackson was publicly undermining his own player in the press. It was chaos. Into this mess walked Charles Oakley. Oakley had purchased his own tickets, paid for them himself, and sat a few rows behind team owner James Dolan near the baseline. Oakley refused, security escalated, and right there, with Porzingis at the free throw line and the players from both teams turning to watch, Madison Square Garden tried to physically remove Charles Oakley from the building. The crowd started chanting his name. Phil Jackson came out to try to calm him down. It didn't work. He was placed in handcuffs outside the tunnel entrance, and somewhere behind the scenes, Phil Jackson was on the phone trying to reach Michael Jordan, the one person who might be able to get through to Oakley. By the time Jordan called back, Oakley's phone had been confiscated. Oakley was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of assault, 1 count of aggravated harassment, and 1 count of trespassing. And then came the Knicks statement. Dolan doubled down. He went on ESPN radio and confirmed the ban. He doubled down on the alcohol implication. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver called the situation beyond disheartening. The basketball world came out in force. Chris Paul, Reggie Miller, LeBron James ended a post-game press conference that week with 5 words: Charles Oakley for president. And then before anything could settle down, Dolan made one more move, and it told you everything you need to know. 4 days, that is all it took. 4 days after Charles Oakley was dragged out in handcuffs, James Dolan sat courtside surrounded by former Knicks legends, Latrell Sprewell on his right, Bernard King on his left, Larry Johnson right next to Sprewell. The Knicks played a tribute video to Sprewell on the Jumbotron, and Knicks official confirmed the appearance was specifically timed to show the organization supports its former players. Spike Lee sat in his usual seat wearing an Oakley jersey. He had taken a Landry Fields jersey to his tailor and had it converted overnight. He didn't say much, he didn't have to. But deepest wound wasn't Sprewell. It wasn't Bernard King. The deepest wound was the silence of one man, Patrick Ewing. The man Oakley literally threw his body in front of 10 years, the franchise player, the one who was supposed to lead. He said nothing. And then in June 2026, while the Knicks were in the NBA Finals and the whole world was watching, it came out in a TMZ Sports interview just how final that break has become. Think about that. Michael Jordan called, Reggie Miller called, LeBron James called, men who were his opponents, men who battled him on the court for years, they showed up. The man he protected for a decade sat in silence. Ewing, to his credit, never fight back. When asked about Oakley's comments, he said simply, which in its own way is more painful than any argument because it means Ewing still thinks of their friendship as real and Oakley has decided it isn't. August 2017, Oakley accepted a plea deal. The charges would be dismissed if he stayed out of trouble for 6 months and stayed out of Madison Square Garden for 1 year. His attorney immediately announced a civil action. In September 2017, Oakley filed a lawsuit against James Dolan, Madison Square Garden Company, and MSG Sports and Entertainment. The central allegation: Dolan ordered Oakley's removal, then ran a coordinated campaign to publicly discredit him. What followed was years of legal war: dismissed, appealed, reinstated, dismissed again, appealed again, reinstated again. As of 2025, the case is what lawyers are calling Round 3. And then in October 2025, a federal magistrate judge ordered Oakley to pay $642,000 in legal fees to MSG because he failed to preserve 5 years of text messages central to the case. The case still survives. His assault and battery claim lives, but 8 years in, no end in sight. 5 days after the arrest, Adam Silver called both Oakley and Dolan to the NBA League office in New York. Michael Jordan, then owner of the Charlotte Hornets, joined by the phone. The NBA issued a statement. Both parties apologized. The ban was lifted. Dolan expressed his hope that Oakley would return to MSG as his guest. On the surface, it looked resolved. The ban was lifted. Both sides had apologized in a room. Adam Silver called it progress. But Oakley walked out of that meeting and said it felt exactly like the night they'd thrown him out. He said, "I feel like I was pulling out of the meeting like I was pulled out of the garden." He never set foot back in MSG. In 2024, the invitation finally came. In Oakley's words, "I guess their lawyer called my lawyer saying it is a good time for you to come back to the Garden." He turned it down. No apology, no return, simple as that. And then before Game 1 of the 2026 NBA Finals, Adam Silver said this.
Michael Jordan tried to, as you said, to broker peace, between Charles and Jim Dolan. Our efforts were unsuccessful, and I tried my best, so I don't...
Silver made it sound like this was an ongoing effort, like he and Jordan had been working on it for years. Oakley was on TMZ Sports within hours. There was no new meeting, no new mediation. Silver referenced a 9-year-old meeting, one that Oakley says changed nothing, and dressed it up as an ongoing effort. The commissioner of the NBA tried, the most famous basketball player who ever lived tried, and by Oakley's account, after 2017, nobody called, nobody came, nobody tried anything. The Knicks organization under James Dolan has banned fans, ejected Spike Lee, dragged out of one of the most beloved players in the franchise history in handcuffs, and responded to each of those incidents with statements and lawyers and dollar amounts instead of 2 words. The crazy thing is, Oakley isn't asking for money, he isn't asking for a number retired or a statue outside the Garden, he asking for an apology. 2 words, that's it. And in 9 years, through a commissioner, through Michael Jordan, through $642,000 in legal fees and 2 appeals courts and 3 rounds of litigation, he hasn't gotten them.
I've been trying to sit down with this man for 4 or 5 years, find out what did I do to make him dislike me. All I did was play hard for the organization for 10 years and the fans in New York and gave him my heart every night. So